from one of Australia's former leading homicide detectives. This is I Catch Killers with Gary Jubelin.
In part 2 of my chat with recently retired police officer Gordon Drage, we talked about more murders Gordon was involved in, including the murder of a former Russian KGB agent on the Gold Coast, the infamous and horrific Bodies in the Barrels murder case, some tragic events Gordon was involved in, including the Dreamworld tragedy and the SeaWorld helicopter crash. Gordon also spoke very openly about his own mental breakdown and what he's doing now helping first responders and their families. Now, these are pretty heavy topics, but I think you're going to find Gordon's perspective quite enlightening. I hope you enjoy it. Gordon Drage, welcome back, part 2 of I Catch Killers.
Thank you very much.
And you've certainly seen the results of a lot of killers in your time as a crime scene officer.
I have, yes.
Yeah.
I don't normally see them face to face, of course, but usually in court I have to walk past them in the witness box or one time or another. Yeah.
That's another aspect of crime scene that you spend a lot of time in the witness box.
We certainly used to, not so much of recent years, because Queensland have changed the way that they do their things now. If you're a defence solicitor and you want to call a witness, you've got to explain why, and what sort of things you want to ask them. So, and I think with DNA and that sort of stuff, in the early days we were getting called, just to stand there and say, well, I don't know, I can't explain it either. You need to call a scientist. Whereas now they would just call a scientist, or they don't even try and challenge DNA evidence now. I think it's above, beyond, out of the scope of most of our solicitors. They just go, well, it's DNA. They accept it. It's legitimate and valid. And,
well, that's right. Yeah. They used to contest it, but you also the defence would hire the expert or an expert to contradict what you've said. Yeah. And I saw some. There must have been a lot of preparation before you gave evidence as a crime scene officer.
Usually, I like to be prepped. Hate that feeling of being caught off guard. And when you stand in the witness box and you go, and you just look silly.
Because there's a theatre involved, isn't there? Because the jury are looking at you and...
well, certainly there's theatre bond part of some defence, some more so than others.
Well, the defence often ask questions that they know you can't answer, and then they'll look at the jury when you go, I don't know, and then they'll roll their eyes and look at the jury. Yeah. That's the theatre of the court.
That's it. And this person's pretending to be an expert in this field. Yeah, but they don't know the answer to these things. Yeah. It's all about not trying to look stupid. Yeah. A bit like coming on podcast, really, isn't it?
Well,
trying not to look stupid.
Hopefully we're not making you look stupid. I always look stupid, but if we can, I'm stuffed. I'll do my best, but I've got my notes, so I look half informed. Right. We're going to talk about more murders. One that I found particularly interesting in the nature of the victim, and that was Gennady Benovsky, a former KGB agent, murdered on the Gold Coast.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us about that case, what your involvement and what you did in regards to that?
He was one of my first murder. Well, he was my first murder on the Gold Coast. After I came back to forensics on the Gold Coast.
That's what we're going to put out. My first murder on the Gold Coast.
Oh, okay.
We just got the confession. Okay.
Yes. Right. Well, no one else has got it. There's a reward. Can we share it? I was. We were stationed at Broadbeach at that stage. Our office was, and I just pulled into the car park at the back of the police station. I think I might have been going to knock off for the night, or at least have a meal. And then I heard this job come across the radio, and it was one of the few addresses I'd still learnt in the short time I'd been at Broadbeach. Yep. So I actually knew where it was. I didn't have to get the map out, because this is pre-GPSs, so I didn't have to actually physically get the map book out and look it up and do those things. So I could drive straight there. So off I went, because they said this person's just been shot a number of times, and it's not looking good. So I'm going, I think I'm probably only one of two, maybe the best, maybe three forensic people working that shift anyway, so it had to be down to me. So I've gone in, I'm keeping my eyes peeled as you do, trying to race in, looking for suspect vehicles or things, because it happened in what do you call it, a canal estate. So there's all waterfront properties. So there's only a couple of ways you can get in and out.
So the street frontage and the canal at the rear of the property.
Yeah, they've got boats and stuff out the back, a lot of them. Mr. Benovsky didn't have a boat. He was on a dry block, but the house opposite him all had a river frontage. So there's only a couple of roads in and out. You've got to cross bridges. So you can isolate the island really quickly by closing those bridges down. Yeah. So I'm going in thinking, I'm listening on the radio, they're getting other people to go and shut those bridges to stop and record people coming in and out. So he's been putting his bins out one night, and it's just gone dusk. So he's put his bins out, and then as he's going back to put his back into the house, he's been shot multiple times with a semi-automatic weapon. Yeah. And he's then collapsed and died just inside the door of his house. He'd gone through the garage and he's in front of his wife and child. He's just fallen down and basically he's bled to death from his injuries. So we've gone in there, taken the photos and done processed the scene. Then I have to then call in the senior other people. So it becomes a much bigger crime scene then. But I was initially there to try and secure the crime scene, get it ready, make sure no one's going to muck about with it too much, and we maximise our chance of getting the evidence. During that first few hours, they go, we think some frogmen have come from the canal across the road, the vacant block. I said, some frogmen. I said, like wetsuits,
And so this is police at the scene.
This is police at the scene.
You're at the crime scene, and it's not unusual for police at the scene to give you an update on what they know. So what you're looking out for certain things. Yeah.
Keep us in the loop is what we say, because then some of the times we can go very quickly, yes or no, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Or, that's plausible. But when I heard this, allegedly these frogmen, I thought, oh, bloody crap. This is straight out the movies. A couple of blokes in wetsuits come out the canal, pop him off, and down we go. And at this stage, I don't think I actually knew he was ex-KGB person. So I thought, that's just so far-fetched. It was crazy. But they ran with that for a little while. I think now, all these years later, that's actually now been pretty much universally debunked. Yeah. But I don't know how else they got into him. Yeah. There was no vehicles. There was no, not that I'm aware of, there was no vehicles I passed, no people. I came in through the main road. So, look, maybe a frogman. They did come up in wetsuits and snorkels, but they have then gone back and have fled back to Russia, I believe. I think they know who their man is, but he's gone back to Russia and he's been there ever since, and he's been probably protected a little bit by the Russians. Yeah,
it's still unsolved, but it gets your curiosity when even the fact that a former KGB agent and killed in circumstances like that.
Because he had a business partner as well, I think was a suspect at one point. He was in business with someone. There was quite a lot of Russians on the Gold Coast. Back in those days. It was
what year were we
talking? 2000? Yeah. This one? 2001 maybe? Yeah. I think it was basically 2000, I think. And he was one of a large group of Russians we had on the coast. Not so much, I don't think the Russians are there as much anymore, but a lot of them were living in very exclusive enclaves and houses and things. Yeah. So there was a lot of Russian money on the Gold Coast back in those days. So whether or not some of that was dirty money, I don't know. But he obviously upset someone to a point where they felt he needed to be killed.
Not alluding to him being associated with the Russian mafia, but I saw that come up a couple of times throughout my career, and don't mess with them.
No, that's clearly not. But of course, ex-KGB, he had some business debts, I gather, or perhaps some poor business dealings. Yeah, it made it very hard for the police to follow a particular line of inquiry, because there were so many variables that could have come into play. And when their main suspect fled back to Russia, I don't think they can extradite from Russia, but
be a bit hard,
a bit challenging. Like trying to stop a war in the Ukraine.
Well, that's going really well, isn't it? Yeah, the world's in a great stage, the state at this point in time. Difference between, we've taken you from South Australia to Queensland, the nature of the crime or the type of work, but also the culture of the police. That's two parts to a question, but nature of the crime, is it any different from what you were experiencing down in South Australia?
Not really. Forensically, it was very much the same, because forensics is forensics, pretty much a universal standard across the world. Fingerprints have always been done much the same way. It's how you process these different bits that might be slight variance. But I was fortunate when I came from South Australia, because I'd had such an extensive and fortunate career there and done a lot with forensics. When I came to Queensland, once they'd found out what I'd done, I got RPL for my studies. I didn't need to go back through their training course. They sat me down and I did some on-road assessments, and I did the forensic exam from the previous course, and passed that. So then they then signed me off with RPL, so I didn't have to go through the whole rigmarole of the 3-month course and all those bits and pieces.
Had the qualifications.
Had the runs on the board. Yeah.
Did you notice any difference in the way that police in South Australia operate compared to Queensland?
I think initially I thought the South Australian police did it a little more professionally. Yeah. But that's now probably been replaced with, now they're much the same. Queensland made leaps and bounds in a lot of the areas since I came up. Yeah. Certainly forensically, they were, I'm going to say, certainly a country, Australian leading, with the creation of the forensic register that they've now sold on to other companies and other police services. I think every police service, state and territory in Australia, is using a form of the Queensland Forensic Register.
And what's that involve?
That's an online. Well, we've got laptops in the cars. Yep. You put your notes straight into that. You can upload your digital photos straight to it. Anyone across the state can look at it. So I could, you might be at the scene. I can look at your notes and see what you've got there straight away. Revolutionised the speed that we can get results and things like that. Hence that I mentioned earlier about the guy at the roadside hit by a car. 20 minutes later, he's identified because I can put those notes on, send them some pictures. This is it. Bring them up. Can you fast track this one for me? They put it through the national fingerprint system, and back he came. In years gone by, that roll of film would have to go to usually a motorcycle policeman, and he would drive it to Brisbane. He'd physically run up through the traffic, get it to Brisbane. They'd have to then develop that, print off the photos they need, get it to fingerprint bureau. Then they have to. We're still talking in a rush job with film. You're still talking probably 8 or 10 or maybe 12 hours. Yeah, as a rush job. And that was it.
And it's crucial at that early stage in investigations. If you get that information and start to be able to act on it, it's crucial for you. All right, the bodies in the barrel case. Now, you were the person that opened the first barrel. I'm sure everyone listening to the podcast and people have an understanding what that was about. I think one of the country's worst cases of serial killing. There was 12 victims all up, not all in the barrels.
Yeah, 14.
14.
14 there was. Yeah.
Tell us the circumstances, just how it happened for you, because I think it's something that you prepare yourself in policing, that you're ready to see the extraordinary or see the horrific or see things, but this is taking it to another level. So tell us from your personal experience what happened.
That was it turned out to be a bizarre day, but it was just a regular every day. I remember I started my shift in Kadina, and my opposite number in the Barossa Valley, he was on holiday, so he was a one-man unit like I was. So when he was on holiday, I would go across and do some jobs in his area if they were urgently needed to be done. So I had this lovely, pleasant country drive across from the York Peninsula across to the Barossa Valley. I'm on the outskirts of sort of Clare, I think, at that stage. And because of my experience with vehicle examinations, there was just an abandoned car chassis just stripped down to nothing, just dumped at the side of the road. So I remember I was looking at that at the time, trying to identify it. And I got a phone call from old bosses in Adelaide and said, look, we've got this job at Snowtown. Is there any chance you can be there for 11 o'clock? Because we had a whole team teed up to come, but they've had another murder overnight in Adelaide, as you do. It's just what happens in Adelaide.
I don't know. It is Adelaide.
I think it was just a one-person murder, not a series of them.
And within the cops, when South Australian police found someone's been murdered. Yep.
So they'd had a murder which had blown their plans out the water. So the crew that were supposed to be coming to Snowtown to do this job could no longer come because they'd been up all night and were still working through this. So they said, if you're available to go to Snowtown, we'll send another person up who's quite junior. But we're only going to send her if you can be there. Otherwise, the whole job's going to go off. I said, well, of course I can. I'll go. I can go across now. So they said, okay. And then so they said, the job's still on. So I got to Snowtown, I think, just before 12 because it was
and what sort of information had they provided to you at this stage?
Well, they just said, we just need you to go over there, meet with the rest of the detectives. They're going to take some photos and video and photograph a house.
Yep.
Okay, cool, no problem. So I've pulled up outside the Snowtown police station. There's a tow truck there and some other police cars. And so I've gone inside. They said, what do you know about the job? I said, well, nothing really. I was just told to meet here at 11 o'clock and sorry I'm late. And they go, that's all right. They handed me an A4 piece of paper. The top half of that had a list of names, about, I don't know, 10 maybe names. And on the bottom half was a whole list of property, things like three-piece, green three-piece leather lounge suites, television, different brands and that sort of stuff. And they said, top half are all missing persons, bottom half are all property we know are missing from their various houses and their residence. Right. Okay. They said, we've had surveillance have followed one of their main suspects across the road. We're going to seize the car, which was his, and we're going to take some pictures and some video of the whole house, inside and outside, just so down the track, if the family say, oh, we've noticed they're missing this, this and this, we will be able to compare the photos and the video and see if it's there. It was easy. Yeah. And in the forensic world, it's just a photo job, technically. Yeah. And we laugh about this all the time in forensics. The amount of times we get called to things, oh, can you just come out to this particular scene or this particular job? And it's usually detectives.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Can you
Well,
come
we're going to get you out there somehow.
I just want some photos.
Yeah.
Just some photos. And when you get there, they want photos, they want DNA, and they want everything else. And that 10-minute photo job turns into 2.5 hours. I should have knocked off an hour ago.
Fair, Gordon. It's about getting you there in the first place. Once
well,
we
is
got
that what
you,
it is?
yeah.
Okay.
Once we got you there.
Well, we're generally pretty happy to come out, but yeah, just don't fit it to us. So I've gone there for a photo job, and it was always going to be a photo job. It truly was. Because nobody knew what we were about to find. So I've started photographing and doing video for the house. The other lady that's come up, she's doing the notes because I've given notice that I'm moving to Queensland. Half my stuff at my house is in boxes, ready to move.
Yeah,
I'm literally within my last 2 weeks of my time with the South Australian
You're
Police.
out of there.
Yeah, I'm going. So I said, look, I won't be able to follow this through. So she's like, I'll do the notes and I'll just do your photos. So that was easy. And then I've done the outside of the house. I'm partway through a couple of rooms on the inside of the house doing some photos. And then the detective calls me out in the front. He says, go have a chat? Sure. So I went out the front. He said, we're talking to the owner. As you know, they just talk general.
And can I just interrupt? What are we talking about with Snowtown? Just describe the town. It's
an old railway town.
Yeah.
So it's literally got a railway line running right through the middle of it.
Yeah.
It still has trains once or twice a week or day comes through because it's the main line to Port Pirie and Whyalla and the steelworks. So they've still got trains. There's still an active train line, but it used to be just a railway town. There's a couple of silos and stuff there.
So really small.
Really small. I think the population was maybe, including the surrounding area, you're probably talking maybe 900 or 1,000 people. Yeah. The township itself probably contains maybe a couple of hundred, if that.
Okay, so it's just got a main street.
Yeah, it's got a main street. The train line takes up the bulk of it. It's got a main street. I don't think there's any banks left anymore. It's got a pub, a bakery. There might be a few more businesses that have come in recent years, but back then it was pretty much it was a two-man police station because they had the surrounding district to look after as well.
Okay, so
it's very much a rural town, and it's about an hour and a half from north of Adelaide. So you're talking fairly remote from Adelaide, hour and a half drive, 2 hours drive maybe, closer to Port Pirie than it was to Adelaide. Yeah.
Okay, so you're turned up there just to get photos. You've explained the job, and then one of the detectives has been speaking to a lady in the house, and
a man in the house,
man in the house, and okay, where have we gone from there?
So he said he's just told us that John Bunting has turned up here in that car that they were going to take, and one time it was full of barrels full of smelly stuff, and he said those barrels are now over at the bank, and apparently when we first told them the story, they all started craning their neck and looking across the road, thinking it was over the railway embankment because there's it's a big mound of dirt hiding the rail line. And the bloke said, no. He said, in the old bank, the old state bank, I leased that or rent it, whatever term he used. He said, they're in the vault in there. Oh. They said, well, what was in there? Didn't you ask him? He went, oh, yeah. So I said, what's this? It smelled like dead cats. And he went, you don't want to know. So I didn't ask him more. Simple as that. Just a simple country man. Yeah. And to this day, he's never been charged with anything. Yeah. He was just I guess maybe trusting of this bloke he'd met.
Didn't overthink it.
No, didn't overthink it. Definitely not. So we've said, okay, we better down tools, better go over there then see what these barrels are. So now our photo job's now going to include the bank, which is fine. So I've jumped in the vehicle. We've gone around originally to an old bank, and we think, well, the key we've got is not working. He gave us the key, and it's not working the door. And little old ladies come past because it's now near the main street. Oh, can I help you, dear? Oh, we're just looking for the state. Oh, this is the ANZ Bank, love. You want to go around the corner? State Bank's around the corner. But that's closed. It's all closed. I can't get any money. I said, no, thank you. That's good. So around the corner we go, and then we find the right bank. So we go around to the back door, and like the manager's office, I suppose it would have been. And we're standing there and thinking, smells a bit like cannabis to me, because I got previous for growing cannabis. Yeah. So I know about this stuff.
Well, you are one of the South Australia's biggest drug dealers.
That's right, yeah. So I thought, oh, this will be drugs. Barrels, liquid, bound to be drugs. So we got this mindset, and we're half expecting to find drugs in there. Got the key, went in. I said, okay, look, I've got my gloves on. Took the video, started videoing as I went in. The door we went in went straight to the kitchen. Little dining table in the middle where the bank staff would have had their lunch and things, little kitchenette. Through the back door to what would have been behind the counter, and then there's just a counter, and there's just lined with sort of old computers and VCRs and DVD players, things like that. Because this fella who lived in the house across the road, he rented that space to repair electronics and stuff.
Okay.
That was his job.
Yep.
He would be the local Retrovision or whatever it was. The local electrical shop would send him their warranty work, and he would either try and fix it or then they would just trash it. So he had a lot of that stuff lying around in there. That's what he used the space for, but he never used the vault. So Bunting had said, "Can I use the vault?" So we did. So I got in there. The vault was closed, and the handle wasn't moving. The tumbler just felt like it was just spinning freely. It didn't feel like there was anything there. So, okay, so then there was this discussion about what are we going to do, how are we going to get in. A couple of detectives went off to make some phone calls, and they were talking thermal lancers and those sorts of things. Well, I didn't want any thermal lancers because, I knew that was, you're talking massive heat, lots of smoke, damage.
Not sure what's in there.
And we don't know what's in there. And I just think it's just going to destroy the vault for, potentially for no good reason. So I thought, before they do all this stuff, I'm going to go and fingerprint it. And they hadn't bought a kit. The fingerprint kit hadn't come up from Adelaide with them. So it was still in my car, which I'd left across the road. So I've walked across the railway embankment, across the tracks, gone across there and said to the local policeman, I said, well, we're into the bank, but we can't get the vault home. It's all locked. And he's sitting with the occupant of the house at that stage. And he said, he said, no, you don't need a key. So you just need a bit of wire. He said, into the keyhole. I went, oh, he said, I'll get you some. So he jumps out the police car, takes me to the side of his house, and he's got this big roll of fencing wire. He just cuts me off a piece, bends it up like right angles, like a little divining rod. And he said, just put that in. He said, and just wiggle around the key things inside. He said, it'll open. I went, oh, okay.
You're a safe breaker as well.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So a safe breaker as well, as it turns out. So I didn't know. I've gone back with this little bent up, like a divining rod. It's just a little piece of wire, like a coat hanger, really. So I've walked in, and by this stage, everyone else has lost interest. They've gone off to make phone calls and things. Yep. There's my other forensic colleague, and there's one detective there who pretty much started it all, who was a lad I'd worked with back in my early days in Elizabeth. Yep. So I walked in. I said, I've got the key, and they've all looked around at me, and I'm holding this bit of bent wire. And of course, the look they gave me, I can't properly describe it, but it was that, words, you could just see in their head, they're going, you're an absolute nom. You're a complete nom, But I thought, well, I have no time like the present. Bronnie was having her lunch, starting to have some lunch, because she'd brought hers with her. I was planning to be home for lunch.
Just taking photos.
So the local Snowtown copper was going to go down to the bakery and get me a pie or something. So while I'm waiting, I'll just have a thing. So I just got down on my knees and I'm looking through this keyhole, this piece of wire, put it in, I'm fiddling around, and I've got my hand just resting on the top of the big lever on the vault door, and then suddenly it's just gone down. I don't think anyone was more surprised than I was. Well, bloody hell, I'm in.
You're going to encourage a lot of bank robberies.
Trust me, guys, I wouldn't take it up as a profession. So this thing's open. It's unlocked. Yeah. Oh, wow. So I go, oh, wait. So before we opened the door, I had to go and grab the little video camera I was using. So, okay, and then the detective opened the door. And again, there's still no smell. And we're just confronted with this wall of black plastic that was sticky taped all the way around, like big, wide, 2-inch sort of wide, clear plastic tape. Floor, ceiling, all around the doors, and a slit down the middle that was all sticky taped up. So the video shows that there's him peeling this off, and as soon as he peels it off, then he said, "Oh no, it's not drugs." Yeah, not drugs. And then you could smell straight away as soon as he opened the seal and broke the seal, if you like. We could smell the human sort of the rotting meat smell.
Okay, so the black plastic was sealing off an area within the safe.
Yeah, well, sealing off the whole doorway.
Oh, right. Okay,
yeah.
so
So
the
once
door
you
was
open the
open.
vault, there's this whole thing.
Okay,
here.
and once the tape's been pulled there, that's when you got a whiff of the smell. Did you know or assume what it was at that point in time?
I think at that stage we realised it wasn't drugs. When we first saw the plastic, I think on the video you can hear him say, "Oh, it's drugs." We thought it's just be plastic lined like so many hydroponic drug places are. So, but as soon as we broke the seal, it wasn't hydroponic smell. There was something dead was in there. So then I said, "Okay, wait." We got the torch. I think the detective held the torch and I held the video, and we just sort of panned around in there to see what we could see. And that's when we could see on the video screen that we had a number of barrels. Could see the green lounge suite that was on that list, standing up on its end in the corner of the vault. And we thought, okay, this has now suddenly become a bit more sinister. So, and in the door, because the vault door is really quite thick, so it has like I suppose the door frame is about 18 inch, 12 to 18 inches thick. inside that little door frame, but so when you close the door, before you get to the plastic, there was a notebook, a wallet, and other bits and pieces. So once we had a look at those, and that's when we learnt then that it was somebody we'd never heard of, the wallet belonged to.
Right.
Once we did some checks, and that was the last victim, Johnson, that was killed there the night before. Oh, I think it was the night before, a couple of days before. And we'd sat there and had our lunch on the floor, thought the carpet feels a bit damp, lift up the carpet tile, did some testing for blood, negative.
Yeah.
But it was just damp because that's where they hosed down the last killing
Right.
on plastic. And inside the vault was this big mound of the black and white plastic you see at drug crops.
Yeah.
All sort of scrunched up in the corner.
What
They were
sort of
spreading it out.
what sort of size are we talking in the vault? Like the dimensions of the
Oh,
vault?
the vault would be. I probably used to be able to tell you exactly what we're talking probably like 4 meters by 2.5 meters.
Okay.
And it's really tall. It's a good 10 feet tall, probably.
And the barrels we're talking about. Describe the barrels.
The barrels were they were previously used to house olive barrels. So they were like 44-gallon drums, but they're plastic. So they're about 1.2 meters, maybe 1.5 meters high.
Yeah.
Probably 3 or nearly 4 feet high in the old measure, with screw top lids, so that it had a separate ring around the top that we could screw on.
Yep.
And then that held on like a plug that went in the top.
Okay.
So once you got the ring off, then you have to pull the little plug thing out of it, and then you could see what's inside. So they were, if anyone's in the olive industry, they're olive barrels. That's what they were.
Okay. So you've come in there. Mm-hmm. It's still you're thinking your sense is it's something sinister's
maybe we're
gone
finding some missing people
on here. The smell is you would know, other police would have had that smell. You've got how many barrels were there?
6 barrels.
6 barrels. And what did you decide to do, and how long did it take you to decide? Well, we've got to have a look.
That's when we said, well, okay, we got to ramp this up now. So we have to make the phone call. So we retreated straight away, made the phone calls to our bosses back in Adelaide. Said, this is what's happened. We've just discovered this. We can see handcuffs. We can see rubber gloves. We can see some knives in there on top of these barrels, a saw and stuff. And now we've got these barrels. So we need to start, treating this as a fairly major crime.
And you've got a list of people that I assume are missing people?
We've got a list of missing people, yep. Which is interesting how that all came about too, but that's probably after I finish all this. So we had to sort of then sit back and wait a little bit. So we're catching up on notes and those sorts of things, and because I'm trying to spend some time trying to calm this fairly new forensic girl who's really becoming quite distraught by the whole thing, because she's gone from 0 bodies to suddenly she's got what she thinks is 6 murders. Yeah, all these barrels. There's a body in each one. So to cut a longer story short, we basically just stalled. There was the debate about what we've got. We could see on the top of the lounge suite there was 3 5-litre containers of hydrochloric acid.
Yep.
They looked like they were empty. I don't know whether we went into that stage. I can't recall now, and whether we to test they're actually empty. But we thought, well, if there's hydrochloric acid in some of these barrels, what are those risks to the police and stuff? So, ring the chemist in Adelaide. This is the situation. What's the story? Hydrochloric acid is essentially just like pool chlorine, so it'll have a strong bleach smell. The vapours and stuff could be toxic in high concentrations. You probably need to be a bit careful about sucking the stuff up into your lungs. So, local detective that I worked with has good relationships with a lot of the local people, even in Snowtown. So he went down. I was, because of my previous firefighting experience, I had used breathing apparatus before. I'd been trained to use it and stuff. So I was familiar with that. And I said, well, if we're going to open them, because there was one of the major crime detectives wanted to take the barrels out and just tip it on the lawn. Yeah. No, we're not going to do that. Because they said, well, we don't know what we're dealing with yet, which is true. And as you know, you really need to have a body, or you need to know what you're doing with before you ramp it right up.
I'm curious about the discussions and debates, because everyone would have been, okay, how
now what do we do? Yeah. And that's pretty much what it was. So even the guys, when they came from Adelaide, then when they all arrived, there was more discussion about, well, how are we going to do it? They said, well, we're going to have to open them and check. I said, okay. So I said, look, I'm trained in breathing apparatus. If we can get some breathing apparatus, I can go in there, I can open the barrels, I open a barrel and have a look what's inside. That might satisfy us that we've got what we're dealing with. And said, then you guys will be outside the vault, and you won't be as affected. You'll be able to tell me whether or not it smells, and then you can vacate quickly, and I can follow you out. So he went down to the local. My detective went down to the local fire station and said, I can't tell you why, but I need this. And this is the mentality of these country people, the trust that you've got in them. I can't tell you why. I can tell you I've got a bloke who knows how to use it. I need a breathing kit, and I'll bring it back in perfectly good nick, but it'll probably need more air.
Yeah.
And he went, okay, there you go. He hands it over.
Love the country.
Yeah, that's right. So he brought it back, and so I got myself all donned up in all this gear. And by this time, we've also had the photographic section have arrived from Adelaide, so they've got a video camera running.
Yeah.
So they're filming me going in. So I've gone in, undone the first of the barrels, took the lid off, popped the... No, that's when I've worked out they've got this little extra lid. So the ring comes off, and then you peel a little rubber seal back, and then you can see bodies in there. A foot, and in a denim, like a leg in the denim pair of jeans and stuff like that. Some of those were in no liquid at all. Others were almost full with liquid. I think it was only one that had all the hydrochloric in it.
So dismembered bodies or bodies that just jammed in there? So.
Well, I could see, most of them, the ones I could see were upside down.
Yeah.
At that stage, there's a body in each one. I remember the first one I opened, I could see the semi-mummified foot with some soil on it and the jeans and whatever they were wearing. I didn't know they were dismembered at that stage. I looked in the top and I thought, well, if there's someone's just been shoved in here head first and their feet are sort of sticking up.
Yeah. So you've opened that first body, the first barrel, I should say, and you've seen the foot. You've got a body in there. Is it lit up, or did you have to bring your own lighting in there?
We had a torchlight, which gives the more eerie effect.
Yeah,
doesn't it, when you look at those
trying
things.
to picture
So the video shows, because I've looked out through the vault door, and everyone is they're still standing there. None of them have fainted or collapsed from the smell and the vapours. So okay, well this is a good thing. Then the video guy's come in. He's held his breath just in case. He's gone in. He shoots the video over the top of the barrel, and I'm holding the torch, and he goes back out again. And then they retreat back out into the main.
Do you go out there and discuss what you've seen?
Well, they could see. I went back up and had the little video, so I could show what that was. So there was definitely body bits in that one. So then the decision was made, we'll continue on and do all of them. So we knew what we had. So that's when I went all the way around all of the barrels and just did the same thing. In he would come, quick video, out we'd go again. And then we said, well, now we've got to get them to Adelaide. And that's when Roger Bayard was contacted, and he said, well, just bring them to me.
Bring them
so we had to bring 8 barrels to them.
Did you just seal the barrels back up? Or
Yeah. Each one I put the lid back on and then just screwed it back down. But of course, this whole time, on the opposite corner of where the bank is the Snowtown Hotel. Yeah. And it's still trading. There are people there on the balcony out in the front. They're all doing their thing on I don't know, it was Wednesday, was it? Whatever night of the week it was, they're all there doing their thing at the pub. So we're thinking, well, how are we going to do this without arousing a massive suspicion? Because they've already got their suspects in place because they've had surveillance on them previously. And that's how they knew to come to Snowtown. They had followed him with his car. Right. Or followed him at one stage. I don't know if they followed him the day he had the barrels in him, but they followed him to this house at Snowtown, which is how they got there.
How many cops were there? Like, I would imagine once this starts to pass up the
once it's gone up the
chain,
it's become the full on it's the full on police circus. You've got
it would have been basically the street being sealed off and everything else.
No, because we're still trying to keep it low key, and luckily for us, the bank had really high walls, like had a high fence at the front. Someone had put up like an 8-foot high fence, so we could work pretty much enclosed, and the front of the bank's got solid steel doors. Yeah. So once they were closed, so we're coming in and out through the side door and a little bit at the front. So very little, I think, was let slip to the public. And the day's getting on, so the sun's going down, and the pubs, people are probably less likely to see what we're doing. Yeah. And so for some reason we were really lucky there. Nobody at Snowtown's rung the media and said, "Hey, what's going on?"
Yeah, I would have thought you'd had cameras there and all sorts of things.
That's what we were terrified of, because we didn't want it getting out, because they knew they had their suspects in mind. Yeah. And they needed to recall surveillance people from their beds and things and get them in place.
The advantage
before
they
it
don't
broke.
Realise that
that's right.
You've uncovered it.
Yeah.
Okay, 1,000 questions.
Yeah.
How long were you in there opening the barrels? How long was that process taking?
Well, I got there at I started the job at 5 to 12 at the house, at the bank. Yeah. So I think I've gone to the bank about 1:30 in the afternoon. I think if I recall from my notes. And I got home at 2 o'clock the following morning.
Right.
So pretty much a 12-hour shift there.
Yeah.
I remember ringing my wife and saying, I'll be late home for lunch. I think it might be there. I'll try and be there at about 2.
Mm.
I didn't mean 2 the following morning. I meant 2 that afternoon. But
Yeah.
obviously it just didn't happen that way. So, yeah, that was a big day. Then we were back again in the morning to finish. The bodies were gone. So we stayed there until the pub had closed. So I think it was about midnight when we got the barrels out. Inside the vault was a little, really old, rickety little like sack trolley thing, a little furniture moving trolley. So we used that to load the barrels on and sort of wheel them out, which is probably what they did to get them in.
To get them in, yeah.
So we were lucky, Cadena at that stage, we'd had quite a large cage trailer that we'd had access to.
Yeah.
So Daisy went back and he drove all the way, drove the hour to Cadena, drove back again for the hour with the trailer, pulled the trailer up at the front after the pub's closed, and we've just wheeled this stuff, manhandled it, and put it all into
all the barrels
into the back of this cage trailer, and he's literally driven it straight to the mortuary in Adelaide.
I'd ask you a question from a professional point of view, as in the police officer, but also from a human point of view. Mm. How did you feel when you opened that first barrel?
I think initially it was, there's a foot. I don't know I don't think I had any preconceived idea what I was expecting to find. I mean, I don't know. I opened and there was this foot. And I remember being a little startled initially. That's a human foot, and there's a pair of jeans there. I think because I just thought someone had been shoved in head first, and there was just going to be this one body in there. And then as you move around to the others, there was bits of garbage bag and coloured garbage bags and things. Because we find out later they've been exhumed from other graves and things. Some of them put in these barrels, getting ready presumably to dump out at sea.
Right.
Because in the manager's office there were 6 bags of concrete. And 6 barrels.
Okay. That was their plan.
Yeah, and they'd had surveillance and telephone intercepts that had heard one of them talking about, I think I might have found a boat we can use. Yeah. And they'd been followed to a boat ramp at Port Wakefield.
Yeah.
And that Port Wakefield boat ramp is sort of right on the edge of the military training, a no-go zone for boats, because it's the military firing area in the top end of the Gulf. And you can go and fish down the other side. But if you leave the boat ramp and turn right, you were going into sort of restricted waters. Yeah. But of course, if you were going to dump some bodies, that would probably be ideal. If you've got some barrels you drive into restricted waters, you're not likely to get caught up in a net. Yeah. If they're going to get blown up, it'll be a long time. So I think that was their longer term plan.
The magnitude of the discovery, like I think from every working detective crime scene officer, you're always looking for this big case that everything that's I've done has gone before. This is the biggest case I've ever been on. 6 bodies, one the barrel after the other opening, and 6 bodies. Like on the scale of things in Australia, that's huge.
Oh yeah, it certainly was. And of course, when they got them to the mortuary, it turned out there were 8 bodies in there. Yeah. They dismembered them. There was eight bodies in those 6 barrels, and then they linked them all to the other what was it, 6 victims or whatever.
So Clinton,
Clinton's precise. He was the one in the paddock.
Yeah. And when was he killed?
Well, Clinton was killed in 1992, I believe, but we found him in 1994 in a shallow grave at Lower Light. A sheep farmer had found a skull, or the sheep had unearthed a skull, and when we got there and found the rest of the grave, and then we exhumed that he was the very first Snowtown victim.
So that was linked to the
but we didn't know at the time. It was we never identified that person. It was a skeletal remains that were just in a shallow grave in a sheep paddock at Port Wakefield, on the way to Port Wakefield, Lower Light, and it turned out to be Clinton Trezise years later. But back then, if we'd identified it as Clinton Trezise, Snowtown may not have happened, because the inquiries would have started, as you know,
led it to
would have started with him and his friends as associates, and we may have, at least we would have been stirring the pot a lot earlier than they were after Snowtown.
Yeah. How long had the bodies been in the barrel?
It varied. David Johnson was the most recent one. He went in the night before, I think the night before, within a couple of days before. Yeah. He was killed there. He was lured. He was the only one killed at Snowtown. Right. Which is the other thing. Most of them were killed elsewhere, and their bodies just turned up at Snowtown because that was convenient, I think, to access the boat, which was the next step, was to probably dump them at sea. Some of them had been killed like years before. This spanned Trezise, I think, was the first one, but I think we've since linked more, possibly even before Clinton Trezise. We did a fellow who was found hanging from trees in a forest north of Adelaide. He was one of the victims as well. We now know it was a staged hanging. Yeah, it wasn't suicide at all. But they had killed him or just hung him, made him hang himself or something. It's a bizarre, sick thing.
The thing is so macabre, and bringing all the bodies together too. That I'm trying to get a sense of that. Like you deal with killers and they get rid of the body, but it's almost like collecting.
Yeah, well, I think they thought, well, we've got so many. The bodies were literally starting to pile up. They buried some under under a rainwater tank at Salisbury North, where they used to live. One of them had lived there for a while. So that was an excavation that took place. They got a body there, and then I think they went back and had to dig deeper to get another 2 bodies from that. So that was what the police did. That was the additional ones to the ones we had, the 8 we had at the bank.
Gordon, just jumping in here, I think there was John Bunting, Robert Wagner, James Flasiskis, I think I'm pronouncing that right, and Mark Hayden, who were convicted in relation to those crimes. And I think Mark Hayden is actually out on parole now. And according to my records here, Bunting and Robert Wagner were convicted of 11 and 10 murders, respectively. Both given life sentences, and at least the court's got that one right. From the personal point of view, you've worked till 2 o'clock. Did you go home that night, or did you sleep there?
I went home because I was only like an hour away. So I went home, and I remember stripping off to my undies outside the back door. I wasn't going in the house because by the time I'd been in the bank so long, I knew I was reeking of the smell of just rotting death. Because the detective was saying, do you mind if I stand this side of you because the breeze is blowing, you stink. And I said, okay. So I dropped all my clothes off out on the back porch and went in, had a shower and went to bed and was up again, I think 7 or 8 o'clock the following morning, back there at 8 or 9.
You married your family at that time? Did you say what you'd... How was
no,
because
they were still all asleep. We didn't have that conversation that day.
Yeah.
How was your day? No.
You'd never believe it.
I think I probably would have sent a text message or something in the afternoon going, "Oh, this has got bigger than Ben Hur. It's a murder or something now."
Yeah.
But I didn't communicate exactly what I was doing at that stage because it was, it's head down, bum up. You're just working away, trying to get stuff done as quickly as possible, and hoping the media don't find out. Because when I've got back in the morning, the news is now broken that. They arrested these blokes early in the morning,
right?
Because they got the surveillance teams onto them, and I don't know whether they must have had a tip off or, but they caught some of them dumping some clothes, and some possessions were dumped in industrial skips, like at the back of shopping centres and places. They were followed and watched, seen to do that. So they must have had a bit of an inkling somehow or other. But then it broke, and then we had like world media were there. I've never seen this huge line up across the road from the bank.
So you went back the next day to
continue finishing. Yeah, because there was garbage bags of stuff inside the vault. Like big garbage bags full of stuff, and it was things like and the sex toys and other bits and pieces.
Magnitude of the crime.
Oh, it was huge. We just covered the floor. The floor of the bank was covered in all these, these items that were inside being documented. The stuff they had. A lot of it was the possessions from all these bodies and the victims.
Like sex toys.
Yeah, stuff they tortured them with. There was a thing called a variac, which was a very large, 240 volt sort of variable power supply. Mm-hmm. Just had a great big sort of button, almost like the tumbler from the vault almost. That was also in the bank manager's office, and we now know that was used on one of them. They would hook up the they had an extension cord that they'd cut the end off, and they had bulldog clips, like big electrical bulldog clips on the wires on one end. So they could plug this thing to the variac, and they could put these on your testicles or on your nipples, and then just dial up the power and torture people like that. Some of them had burn marks on them. I think Roger Bard will talk about the burn marks and stuff that some of them had.
It's pure evil, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it was all to get their social security money in the end.
Yeah, pure evil with the dumb motive, but clearly they were getting something more than just the security to commit crimes like that. In the place, was there an eeriness about the place? And I know we're cops, we don't say. I know it was creepy, but was there something? If someone's been tortured, I've been to places where people have been tortured, or you get a sense. Did you?
I think one of the things, and this is one of the things that has really affected the lady I was working with that day, being so new in the forensic world at that point in particular. We sat there on the floor and realised the carpet was damp, and we tested. So we sat on the floor, and then later find out that was the reason it was damp was because they have hosed down that floor after killing David Johnson the night before. I'm pretty sure it was the night before. Yeah, we just didn't know, and we think, well, so that leaves a weird feeling in you. You think, I'm sitting on the floor exactly where this person was probably lying at one point before they've put him into a barrel. It's macabre. It's really hard to describe. But you talk about eeriness. There's still an eeriness to the bank. I went back last year. First time I've been back into that bank in 26 years, and I could still, like it was yesterday, still visualise everything. The counters, it's changed a bit inside. A lot of the counters and stuff have gone, but the vault's still there. And it was bizarre. I thought, wow, it's been a long time, but you can still remember everything like it was yesterday. It's just, sticks with you forever.
Sticks with you. And I suppose when it sticks that long, it can hang there with you and you don't realise the damage. I think even when we had Roger Byard, who did the postmortems on the bodies.
For days.
Yeah, he said that it stuck with him. And he's seen a lot of bad things, and it's funny how you carry it. Amazing story. I think in everyone's career, you're looking for that job that beats all other jobs. And people might be listening to us thinking that's strange, but when you're working in that field, these are the type of things you prepare for, and sometimes it just happens. And
well, it's true. It's what you train for. You train for major crime and the worst. But you don't expect, I think, ever that you're going to get something like that. 6 or 7 bodies in one go. You think it's just crazy. And then to find there was 8 in there as well. But it's such a long process afterwards, because not only was there the scene at Snowtown, and once that was done, I was able to go back to finished off a couple more shifts, and I think I'd finished up and was on my way to Queensland. But the rest of the team, from Adelaide and they'd come up, they were then going on for weeks later, months later, going to all these other scenes and digging up bodies and photographing pits in garages and things where bodies had been held for a short time. All the places these people had lived or their associates had lived and things. And that was all down to the one lad, the young lad who is about to come for parole this year.
I think I saw you speaking in the media about that.
Yeah, they asked me. I didn't know it was happening, so they just asked me for a quick little grab on that, and what my take on that was. But he was instrumental in solving a lot of them, or linking a lot of them together, because he knew a lot about it, and he genuinely thought that he was going to be a victim, and he probably would have been. Had it gone long enough.
Oh, well, let's see. It sticks in everyone's psyche, and you must carry it with you to a degree. Did that play any part? And I've spoken to you before, and you're comfortable talking about it. You had a mental breakdown, or that's how it's been described. I'll let you describe it in more.
Well, that's I call it a mental breakdown, falling out the tree, whatever it might be.
That's right. You did say falling out of the tree.
Well, that's my
is that a medical term?
Well, it's not a medical term, but it's the polite way of saying I dropped my bundle.
Yeah. What happened? What happened there? You comfortable talking about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think more people need to talk about this stuff, particularly police and first responders in general. I'm a big advocate now for people to not have to go through this, because in my case, it does sneak up on you. You don't see it coming necessarily, but there were probably signs when I look back now that I should have probably had some warning signs. Probably should have thought, no, I need to break, but I didn't. So it was an afternoon shift. I'd started work at 2, just a general office shift. Went into the forensic office, and there were. Back in the day, we had all our jobs were printed out on A4 paper. You take the job sheets, you put them on your clipboard, and off you go for the shift. You pick your area, go and do your stuff. So there were jobs there, and if you ring someone up and they're not home or they can't, not available today, come and see me tomorrow. You make notes on the job like that. And there were several jobs in this tray that I had seen that I had dealt with the previous day, and no one had got to them during the day. And I went, why didn't we get to these today? And one of the boys, completely innocently, just said, because we knew you'd do it, Gordy. And I thought, that was it. That was all he said. Because we knew you'd do it. Yeah. He didn't mean any malice. And it probably wasn't even true. It's just that they were busy, I suppose. But they didn't get done. But when he said, because we knew you'd do it, that was it. It just snapped. I guess that's how I was feeling. I'm carrying the whole thing. So I just broke down in tears. I had to leave the office. I went to the car. I sat there and cried in my car in the car park. I thought, this is nuts. And I just drove myself home. I thought, I can't go to work like this. I couldn't stop crying. I didn't know, and I didn't really know why. This is bizarre. So I've gone home, and my wife's there. I don't know. I can't stop crying. I've had it. I can't do this. Then I've rung the doctors, and I said, well, I need to see a doctor. And my regular doctor wasn't available, and then I broke down in tears. He said, come in. I said, I can't come in. I can't come and sit in your waiting room like this. I can't stop crying. She went, no, I'll put you in a separate room. So they made allowances for me. I went straight down there. They put me in this little side room. And because I was just kept crying for no real reason. It's just bizarre.
Was that unusual for you to like when you say you're crying? I'm looking at your face and it's like you're shocked. Like what the fuck? What am I doing?
Exactly.
Crying?
That's it. Yeah. I'm thinking, why can't I stop? Like it's just, and it was not like I was thinking any evil thoughts or anything at that stage. I thought just was overcome by the emotion, and it sort of, I think once I'd started, it was just easy to it just kept going. It was like it was just all years of just tears just coming out.
Let it all out.
And I thought, and it was quite scary because I didn't actually know what it was.
Yeah.
I thought, what has happened to me?
And that happened that quick.
That quick, like just I was throwing a switch. Just the fact he said, because we knew you'd do it, Gordy, that was enough.
Yeah.
Bang,
Yeah.
that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I thought, I think I was also thinking this is the end of my career, and that was heartbreaking. And so that was not helping my my emotional state. I'm thinking, I've just lost the plot. I'm going to go. I'm going to be one of these gibbering wrecks, ex-police now that become.
And what stage? What year are we talking? What stage in you?
We're at 2009, I think it was thereabouts.
Yeah.
2008, 2009.
So you thought that was it?
I thought this would be the end of my career. I'm done here. This is nuts and that didn't help. It doesn't help your emotional state when you think, well, I don't know what to do from here. So I saw the doctor, and the doctor said to me, look, you need to see a psychologist. Clearly there's something wrong with you. And I said, well, I've got access to them, through work. Yeah. I knew that I had works would supply some. And he said, I'm only going to let you go from here if you promise me you're going to do that. So I will. So then I went back, and by then I've had a phone call from my boss who said, like, what's gone on? What happened? Where are you? Yeah. And I think I broke down with him. I said, so then he got the psychologist to call me, and I had to chat to her that night. And she said, look, what's going on? So then I went and saw a psychologist and did some testing and stuff. And they said, right, well, you've got post-traumatic stress, you've got some depression, and you're going to need some work.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that was me off for, I think, 2 or 3 days, remainder of the week maybe.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is no good. And then I know I'd spoken, one of my colleagues had similar issues before, and he'd gone to a psychologist who he really rated. He said, she's really, really good. Yeah. She does this hocus pocus, fancy, weird shit she does with like a hypnotism type thing with fingers. And that technique's called EMDR. I can't tell you what it stands for now. Something about eye movement, rapid desensitization or something. But he said he was very sceptical. He said, but he reckons he rated it. He quoted. So I made an effort to contact this woman, the same woman, and I went and had an appointment with her, and she had a chat to me about different bits and pieces, and then she started doing some treatments on me. And I think I saw her probably 2 or 3 times before she did EMDR, and I've now gone back to work. I haven't had a week off. I'm not having a week off. The source wasn't me. No, I'm not having 3 or 4 weeks off. This is not going to be the end of my career. I didn't want that to happen. So I made sure I could go back to work.
Because there's an embarrassment attached to it.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? It's a shame. And I think I've seen that with a lot of police, that you're putting your hand up and police aren't meant to break down like that.
No, that's right.
So
and
that shame of coming back and facing your colleagues again. And,
and they're on eggshells around you.
Are you okay?
Yeah, the guy that said, I should, mate, it's not your fault. Yeah. It's fine. You happened to say it. It could have been anyone else would have said it. The same sort of thing. It's just how it was. Yeah. But so they're a bit nervous about you. But to the credit of my boss at the time, he allowed me to come back. I said, I'll be all right. I just need to perhaps get back on the horse, as they say. So I was still having this treatment with her, and then eventually I had this EMDR and stuff, and then I had 2 or 3 sessions of EMDR, and I reckon that's what's helped me get back on the straight and narrow. Yeah. It got me back to work very quickly, to the point where she now, I believe, is where she's one of the preferred people that the New South Wales Police send their people to. Certainly the Northern Rivers, because she's in the Gold Coast. Yeah. So the Northern Rivers Police, I think, get sent to her if they have psych issues as well, because this EMDR treatment appears to be working quite well. Certainly for me.
We've had police on that talk about the where they've taken it further, where they've actually left the police after the breakdown. Not dissimilar to the way you describe it, with the overcoming of the emotions and everything else that goes with it. But I had one that I very much respected, and he said that the advice he got when he was getting treatment after he's left the police was, if I got this during the course of the police, I still could have had my career. Yeah. You're a classic, and he was saying strongly and advising police that, if you're feeling it, don't. If there's a red flag or an indicator, get it addressed. And your testimony to the fact that
Absolutely.
that's what you did, and you went on for how much
well,
longer
I
after
did
that?
What to do then? Just another 12, 13 years.
Yeah.
Until I was 60. So yeah.
Yeah.
Until
Okay.
I'd still be going now if I could, but
Yeah.
that's the rules of Queensland said no. So absolutely, I'm a big supporter of that attitude.
Yeah.
If you think you're having some dramas, or even if you don't think you're having some dramas,
Yeah.
nothing wrong with this psychological testing. Go and have it done. I mean, the forensic people in Queensland, and to the credit of the QPS, they recognise that they're forensic people and the like a lot of the juvenile aid people that work with the juvenile crime, and some of the Argos people that do the child trafficking and those sorts of things. And we are the high risk groups. So they have a voluntary system where you can do an annual psych test, and I've been doing that for years. And that's just about really having a conversation with the psychologist and saying, your results are a bit different to last year. Are you sure things are okay? Do you want to have a chat about anything?
Yeah.
And lots of people are still fearful of that. Don't be fearful. I used to take the mickey out of those. We used to watch, as kids, you'd see these American TV shows. Oh, they were having therapy. Americans were having therapy. Their dogs were having therapy. Their cats having therapy.
I know.
And you'd laugh. Yeah, but I actually think they were onto something.
So they because I know in New South Wales, at least when I left working homicide, we'd have to see a psychologist every 12 months or 6 months, and it was compulsory. It wasn't a test; it was just sit down, how you going, blah blah blah. Yep. You're saying in Queensland they give you the option. You can also volunteer for a test, so they can do.
You can opt out not to do it. A lot of people didn't do it, or they just
Okay, but the test is not just sitting down; it's answering questions.
Yeah, it's just a written test. When you're at parties, and it's all those to standard sort of psychological testing, and then they compare your results. There'd be a name for it. If there's a psychologist listening, they'll go,
psychometric type.
Yeah,
testing.
that type of thing. When you're at parties, do you sit in the corner? Are you outgoing and going? Do you find yourself sitting in a room counting the tiles on the wall and stuff like that? Those sorts of questions.
Yeah. Do you get excited when you see flames?
Do you feel the overriding urge to go and kill someone?
I know.
Depends on the day.
The first time, and this I suppose is the culture of the police, I remember the first time they sat us all down in homicide to do that, and they were doing the right thing. And I'll criticise police if I have to, but they were doing the right thing. You've got to do these tests. And we're sitting there and go, there'll be a question like that. Hey, what did you put for get excited about fire? And we're treating it as a joke. But I think people like you speaking out about it, and other people I've referred to, that we should treat it.
Absolutely, we should. And I'm living proof that if you have your little breakdown, if you fall out the tree, you do not have to end your career if you don't want to. I mean, some people obviously get it worse than I. I probably had it. Maybe I had it in a mild way. But if I got it in a mild way, I really do feel for those people who get it badly. And of course, the lady I was working with for Snowtown, she's never come back to work. She's broken, and that was disappointing because I rang Adelaide and I said, keep an eye on her because she's it's been a bit much for her the last couple of days. So what they do, they send her on all the other follow-up scenes as well. So So, but that's a different era. That's a lot of years ago. We're talking a lot has changed in policing in general in that sense, and their attitude to mental health and those sorts of things.
And I think that's the aim because people, you would hope people want to get back to work and continue.
I don't think most people want to be out of the police. Certainly not still, being completely messed up. But you don't have to be, and don't be afraid to speak up. Most police services, it doesn't have to end your career. I went back to the same job I was doing in the same office with the same people around me. Nobody transferred me. Nobody said, no, he can't work. And I went on for another 13 years.
They accepted you and didn't look at you as this freak that started crying in the office.
They don't actually saw me crying. I left probably as the tears were flowing. I thought, I can't stop this. I've got to go. I just walked out to the car park. But even if I had, it wouldn't have bothered me. It wouldn't bother me now because I'm quite happy to say, if you feel like having a cry, you bloody well should. Sometimes even blokes, there's this attitude about men don't cry. That's what's led to this this dangerous situation where you've got men who are now often they'll suicide rather than go and say, hey, I'm not travelling that well.
Put your hand up for help.
put your hand up. Say, I don't like this. I don't feel comfortable.
That's
There's
part
nothing
of
wrong with that.
We're talking about it now, so we'll continue on that. Part of the stuff that you're doing now, helping first responders and families. And is it? I'm just looking for it. Fortum. Tell us about that. What's that about?
Fortum are not-for-profit that was created. I'm not sure how many years ago now. They were fairly new. I think they were formed about 2022, maybe.
Yeah.
Or 20. No, they came to Queensland maybe in 22. But because I was being forced out at 60 because of the rule, I had no plans to retire and put my feet up.
Yeah.
I could afford to, because you do get access to your superannuation, but I can't get age pension or any of those benefits till I'm 67, like most Australians. So I'm being forced out of a job I've loved for years. It's pretty much all I've known for 30 odd years of my life, 36 and a half, and there's no support from the Queensland Police, nothing. Yeah. No resume writing skills, workshops, nothing. I think, well, I'm going to put a resume together. I've never had to write a resume in my life. Just the application for the police was all I did.
Yeah.
So Fortum have what they call a transition program. So they are targeting police and first responders, not just police, any first responders who are transitioning for whatever reason, who are transitioning from their career into another field. So that's when I got on board with them. They come and did a presentation one of our training days.
Yeah.
And I thought, I need your card. So I had some great support from them. I had a great resume put together in the end.
Yeah.
They put me in touch with who turned out he was an ex-police officer as well, but he was doing training and those sorts of things and helping with resume writing. So I'd tell him what I'd done, knock up a bit of resume, send it to him, he'd go, critique, don't like this, don't like that. We like going to school. So we sent it back and forth a few times, but then in the end I had a resume that was really, really good. I was really proud of it. In fact, when I did send it off to Bunnings, they rang me up and said, your resume's unbelievable. What the hell do you want to work for us for? I went, well, here's the thing. I'm 60. I went, what? Most people can't believe. They're not in the police. Most people still don't understand in Queensland that you're forcing your police out because they turn 60 for no other reason.
No, it's crazy.
It goes back to the 70s when it started.
Because
60 was a different thing back in the mid 70s when you were 60. 60 was a reasonable age.
I'm thinking surely they're going to have to change it. Soon.
Got to. Well, it's going to change because of the defined benefit. It's all linked with superannuation, so that's the issue.
A couple of things there on what you're talking about, but when police leave, I like what you're saying. I read something about the work they're doing and some of the comments that you've made, that you go through life identifying as a police officer. And I think there was some article I read or something about you that you're saying, well, everyone I know is most people I know me as a police officer, except for your brother and sister, or
my brother
and
sister, my kids, my wife, everybody. I think the quote is, "I've always been Gordy from forensics." Yeah, that was who I am.
That's your identity, and when that's taken away, so I think that's it's not about just looking after police when they're in there; it's looking after police when they leave, and that you're talking about the CV. My career, as everyone knows, ended very suddenly, and I was a career cop. I wasn't going to do anything else, and all of a sudden, you're out on your own, and it was a strange world, and you'd lost your tribe, so to speak. So I can see people doing it tough. I landed on my feet, fortunately, but I can see people doing tough that your whole world's been cut off, and.
Just because you have a birthday, in the case of some of these people. So I think it's important that we address that, and that's why I'm very, very happy to be associated with Fortum. I'm actually there. Last year they ran a pilot program with people like myself who have exited from their transition program to be volunteer mentors for others who are going through it as well. So you can sort of help them in the same way that I got the help. So, excuse me, I'm planning when I get home, probably tonight or tomorrow, they're now formalising that, and they're going to start the new training course. So I plan to put my hand up for that, because I'll try and give something back. Okay. Without them, I would be floundering. I'd have some pathetic little resume. Because I was really looking to go and get some other jobs, and I was looking at IT. It's a great networking thing. You can go to some of their seminars and stuff like that. I've spoken at some of their stuff, but they're just there, and they've now introduced like family days and things. They have activities just to get families, so you can take the family along and have go and do paddleboarding or stand-up paddleboarding, stuff like that, just to try and I guess, humanise the poor old first responder, because we do tend to get, like I was, I had a thing, I was diagnosed with emotional numbing, which is, I think, something common, probably homicide detectives would get it, where you go to work, you put up your little force field or your little protective shield, and then it stays with you so long because you're dealing with all this horror and horrible things that you've got this little sort of force field around you. But when you get home, you eventually lose the ability to drop that, and you become emotionally numb at home as well, and that affects your relationships at home and things.
Gordon, I'm not going to admit to anything.
No,
but
well, you should.
But I know exactly what you're
right.
saying. It's the drama that's working. You shut it down, and then you go home, and it doesn't fit with the rest of the world.
No.
Your emotional response to
and you
to
need
things.
to be aware of that, and I try and make people aware of that now. Don't fall for that trap, because I believe, I'm on my second marriage now, and it's a very good marriage, but the first one fell apart because I was probably emotionally numb. My wife found it was another man's company more appropriate than mine, because I was working like shifts,
giving nothing,
and you miss stuff, and as police, we all miss the kids' birthdays and bits and pieces and different things. So emotional numbing is a big thing, I think, with first responders. We're all prone to it, so don't fall for the trap.
I would like to see police like qualifications, and I talk about this a lot, that qualifications, that if I'm a New South Wales police officer, I should be able to work in Queensland, South Australia, Western Australia, move around. And I'd also like career breaks in policing. I think that would be so beneficial, and they would retain more police, because I saw a lot of police go, I'm sick of this job, I'm out of here. Then they're trying for the rest of their life trying to get back into the police, and they're regretting leaving.
Yes.
I took 12 months off during my time in police, and it was the best thing I did. It totally refreshed me. I came back, I was itching to get back at work and jump back in. We should facilitate that in policing, all the police forces across the country.
I think Queensland have introduced that. I believe it exists in Queensland. A few people have got it, but of course at the moment, I think the biggest challenge is getting enough support from your bosses to spare you for that time, because they can't get enough police as it is. So they're going to go, well, I'm not sure how it's running in Queensland now, but I know career breaks were pretty much a privilege, more so than a right.
Well, that's right. I took 12 months leave without pay, but I had to give up my position in unsolved homicide that I've been striving to get for a long time. And if I wanted the 12 months leave, I lost that position. It came back, and it was a lottery that I even got back into homicide. I managed to find my way in, but that was a risk. But you'd like to be able to see, crime scene, overworked, underpaid, all that. You'd like to. I just need a break for 12 months. I'll attend the court matters if you need me at the court. 12 months, I'm going to go work in Bunnings and just have a break, have a normal life, and then come back.
And some of them go off, and I think they go and train. They go to they spend their time going to uni or whatever, getting qualifications for a different job if they want. And of course, the police service are nervous about that. If you go outside, you don't come back.
I don't know what it is about the culture of police. It's almost like you're either with us or you're against us.
That's right. It's strange, and it's not serving any police service or the police themselves any good, really, because like you said, you're forcing them to stay in a job that they may be questioning as it is. So then they're just going to leave. They end up they end up broken, and you end up having to pay them a massive amount of money in work cover compensations and things, because they're broken, and then some of them are no good to anybody.
And we joined as a vocation. That's your career path. You're going to stay there. That's not the generations these days. Don't look at this as a career I want to stay in for the rest of my life. So if you show them, you can come in, you can leave, you can come back, you retain your quality, you do a refresher course, you come back. And I know it's in part there, but it is the will of the bosses, whether they're going to let you have that option.
And I think it's important that as an employee, you're a reasonable copper too. If you just come in and think it's just a free ride, I mean, if you've got some runs on the board, then they're going to want you to come back. But there's a few coppers I've met over the years. They can't wait for them to leave. Let's just get rid of them. When are they turning 60?
Well, they're the ones that get. You can get that transfer.
Where do you want to go?
I've seen a lot of bad police get promoted and transferred out because everyone just wants to get rid of them.
Exactly right. And some police will tell you they get promoted to higher positions.
When you're signing the recommendation, I thoroughly recommend this person. He or she would be great. Pass that on. And, bye, they're gone. They've been transferred.
And 3 weeks later, you get the phone call from their new boss going, "What have you done to me? How dare you do that?"
You've done that.
Don't you ever expect anything from me anymore?
A couple of other things that being based where you were in Queensland, and I know we've spoke about it, but they're very high profile in that captured the attention of people was the tragedy at Dreamworld. You're at Crime Scene. Did you have any involvement in that?
I was relieving as officer in charge the day that happened. I remember sitting in the office, had the radio on next to, just on low next to me and the thing, and there was all this chatters come on the radio. There's something that's happening. There's all this chatter about Dreamworld. What's going on? And my the guy I was relieving for was the acting inspector, and I knew he'd been in Brisbane and was driving back around about that time. So I remember ringing him saying, I'm not sure what it is, but I'm hearing stuff at Dreamworld about multiple deaths. Yeah. You might want to, keep an ear on the radio or even pop in. So he's gone into Dreamworld and he's found out what's happened. He's rung me back and said, like, this is what's happened. We need this. We need to deal with these people. So then I've gone out to people and go, righto, guys, listen up, this is what's happened. We've got to get some crews up here. And that went on forensically. I think we were there for about a week, off and on, because some of the forensic people are also the disaster victim identification people, part of that team. And they've been deployed to Bali and places like that for some of the bigger events. So we were there forensically for a long time with the forensic crash people, investigating what happened. I remember looking at all the photographs, because part of our role as forensics is you're peer reviewing each other's work. And you have to peer check the photos and things, make sure they're reasonable quality. So I remember looking at every single one of those photos. Those poor people. Yeah. Some of them were really badly smashed up.
I think it touches on us all, because a lot of us would have taken our kids there or gone there as kids, and it's a fun place, a place that you go there to celebrate and enjoy life. And what happened? The boat just on the rails and flipped over.
Yeah, I think the finding was that the water level had got a little bit lower than it should have been. Yeah. And I think there was a broken switch. When it drops to a certain level, it should cut things off. Yeah. So it was a combination of things. The water level was a bit low, which allowed the boat to sort of sit lower onto the little hooky thing, and it didn't clear properly. And the second boat came down the little thing and crashed into it. And instead of the first one then moving away and floating, the water was a bit low, so it was able to tip up, and it just tipped the occupants out into the water. So one went, a couple of them went down into the water and were trapped down there. Another one went through the actual sort of conveyor belt mechanism things as well, and trapped underneath. And of course, the poor young person that was on, I think, their first day on that ride, wasn't familiar with the emergency stopping buttons and stuff like that. So it was just a complete combination of things. But
they had another one up there, the SeaWorld helicopter crashes.
Yeah, that's happened since I left.
Did you guys get called out? Or?
Well, there's a funny thing, because that happened after I'd left the police, but that was one that, my current job, that my colleagues I work with now went and collect all the bodies from that. So that was one of those interesting areas where they still get involved in those things. So even though I've left the police, I still end up working a bit with the police now, quite regularly. Yeah.
Well, in terms of your employment now, what are you doing?
Well, I'm now a funeral director.
Okay, you like
yeah.
Okay, I'm sure there's a comment I can make to that, okay.
You've got to understand, Gary. I was born in a place called Gravesend. What hope did I have?
That was your destiny.
That was destiny. Yeah, from birth. I was born in a place called Gravesend, and so I was always going to end up doing something involving death. Yeah. So, but I was at Bunnings, funnily working at Bunnings, and then my now current big boss rang me up. Or my previous boss rang me. I'd give you a number. So he said, I need a hand. He said, this is what's happened. They were always the contracted government undertaker. Yeah. So all of my bodies on the Gold Coast, the guys from this company that I work for now,
they're the ones.
They're the ones that come with the police. When we're ready, that we ring them up and they send their people out, and they take the bodies back to the mortuary for us. So they do the conveyancing. So I'd got to know most of them quite well, even though there's only 4 or 5. Yeah. But they were always the same company I had. And then so when he rang me, he said, we've got this renewed contract. He said, I've got the Gold Coast again. So it's great. Congratulations. He said, but as you do, he said, in case you don't get the one you want, you put in for others around it. So he put in for the Scenic Rim Police District, the Logan Police District, Ipswich and Moreton Bay, and a whole others. And he got them all.
So sure
that's what I said. I said, so you've bitten off more than you can chew. And he went, well, no. He said, I just need good people. He said, I thought of you. So I originally started just doing part-time work to do after hours around my Bunnings shifts to help them with that. That lasted about a month, and then one of their regular guys had left, and then they called me in the office one day. I thought I was going to get the sack. Yeah. Funny, because I'd been on call. I remember going back and handing the keys in to the van I'd had at home, and then they said, have you got a couple of minutes? And I went, yeah, sure. They took me in the office and closed the door, and I thought, And in my head, I'm thinking, am I about to be sacked for the first time in my life?
Yeah.
So he sent me there. So he's left. I said, I didn't know that. I'd been away, and they said, they said we'd like you to stay on and take the job on full time. I said, So can I have a think about it? Yeah. So I went off and spoke to my wife and said, so now I'm a full-time funeral director on the Gold Coast. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's all...
And sort of it pays rubbish. You don't do it for the money, but it's an extension of what I was doing.
Seeing all the death that you've seen in all sorts of forms, accidents, murders, and what you're dealing with now, does it make you reflect on death?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've lost count of the amount in the relatively short time I've been doing it. I've lost count of the amount of times I've buried and cremated people that are much younger than me.
Yeah.
And the speed that some of these people have got sick too.
Yeah.
They've ignored the basic medical things. And you hear horror stories of people. They were fine. They've died like in 9 days. They went into hospital, and 9 days later they're in my office saying, "We need to plan a funeral. We've got to do this."
Does it make you approach your life a little bit differently, or look
absolutely.
at life differently?
Yeah.
What's your approach?
I think you've certainly got to, every time I wake up now. But this also comes back to I had a brain tumour removed in 2020 as well. That changes your outlook on life when you think you're about to die.
Yeah.
And may not come out of surgery. That was pretty harrowing too. So I think you've just got to live each day to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow isn't guaranteed, as they say. And I've met plenty of people who, they have all these plans. It can be quite heartbreaking when you see, you're talking to wives or husbands, and they're still working, and they've got their plans to do it. And then something happens, someone passes away, and all that goes out the window. The caravan's no longer going to be used. The four-wheel drive they don't need, and some of this stuff is still on order.
Yeah,
it's come that close. They haven't even taken delivery of their holiday vehicles yet and their things. So if you every day you wake up, be grateful that you've woken up, because
make the most of it.
Every day there's at least 2 or 3 people every day on the Gold Coast that are not waking up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a good advice and to feed to us and. About the way you approach life. I see a good energy here. You're not this disgruntled, burnt out cop that's angry at the world. And I like to see that. I love seeing people that have been through a career, look back at their career, enjoy the highs, understand the lows, and you seem to have a good approach on life.
I've been very fortunate in my career, my life in general. I've been you've got to take each day as it comes, and I've been very fortunate in my careers. I've had great mentors, and that's why I'm quite happy to try and give a bit back now, particularly to Fortum. I think Fortum's an awesome organisation, and the way they've expanded now to try and help all first responders. It was just police, now it's emergency services. I think SES are involved now, or can be involved.
If people want to reach out, how do they
just Google Fortum, Fortem.
Yep.
They're a not-for-profit. If anyone's got some spare money, want to throw at them, I'm sure they'll take your money. But they're have a look. If you're not aware and you're already in emergency services, then you can get onto it, because there's a lot there to offer, even if it's just a social day with your family. These things are free. Get on it. Yeah.
Let's shout out to them.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much for coming on. I've thoroughly enjoyed the chat. So
no one's fallen asleep. So
I suspect that, and who cares if people listen? We've enjoyed the chat.
Well, this is it. That's it. This is all about us.
Congratulations on your career too.
Thank you.
36 years in the police and the type of work that you've done and the service to the community, and I mean that genuinely, because I know there's working police and there's other type, and you've obviously rolled your sleeves up and had a go, pay the price. But you still got a good outlook on life. So thanks very much for coming on I Catch Killers.
Thank you very much, Gary.